Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. So we've got the Weller soldering iron. Check this thing out, this is cool. Anyways, so it's not a soldering iron, it's a soldering gun. So anyways, I was soldering some battery connectors on some new batteries, and they're like really thick cables, right? And I thought, okay, I can do this. I've done this before, right? And this is what I use. This is a 45 watt iron. Well, apparently there was a bit of a disagreement there with the soldering iron. It's like, no, I'm not going to do this for you. So, dealing with thicker cables on RC batteries, you really do need a proper soldering tool for that, and that's where this gun comes in. Now, there's a lot of choices of guns, but I think you'd be okay at about 100 watts and above, but 45 watts is not going to cut it. And my theory is always go big or go home kind of thing. You know, I do things in the excessiveness sometimes, and for a good reason, right? This one is 200 watt by 260 watt on the top end, okay? So full trigger, and I'm all about full trigger. I love full trigger. And so 260 watts of power, lace into that, get that connector on there really quick. You won't overheat your wire, and you're good to go. So that's what I did, and I got my connectors changed onto my batteries for the connector type that I like to use for the most part, and it was so quick and easy. I was sitting here in frustration for almost an hour, and every time I would have a screw up, I thought I'd have the connection made, and nope, it wouldn't do it. It came off, and it's like, so we decided to go into North Bay, go to Canadian Tire, and we picked up this gun. It was like 80 bucks, and an extra bag of tips was another 10 bucks. Now, the tips that I got as extras are the same ones that come pre-installed on the gun, and it's a main soldering tip. And it's got a nice thick wide blade on it too. I've used Weller guns before in the past. My father had them when I was a kid growing up. I've done a ton of soldering. I more prefer the pen stuff because most of the soldering I did as a kid, and I'm not kidding, I was a kid. I started into electronics when I was about 8 years old, and I was tinkering and fixing and making things better and all that sort of jazz. I used to use just these pen guns, and actually even a finer tip one than this, and got away with that for a lot of years, and then got into this style, a little bit more juice, and that always helped. But you need the lower end ones for really super fine stuff. So you kind of need a variety if you're going to get into electronics. And this gun comes in really handy for heavy gauge wires, okay? You need to get the heat on there. Like this thing for 45 watts, it's heating up the wire and heating up the wire, and it's like burning my fingers at this point. We've like half heated the length of the wire on the battery, and I'm like, any more than this and I'm going to disconnect it from the inside. That's not going to go well. And of course it's still not doing its job because I can't feed any solder onto the tip because this thing's getting cooled off as fast as it's trying to heat the wire, right? And of course I use soldering paste, and I do things the right way, and it's still not cutting it. So we got this for 80 bucks, another 10 bucks for some spare tips, so 90 bucks in tax out the door. Comes with a nice case too. There were a couple other models that they had, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of the go big or go home kind of guy. I like to do things excessively in a lot of things, and so I thought, well, excessive power ain't gonna hurt me for this. So this is 200 watt by 260 watt. There's also a 7-year warranty on this thing too, which is another bonus. You get 7 years to blow it up, so that's kind of cool. The gun is actually quite nice. It's decently balanced. This is actually a little bit more robust model than even what my father had when I was a kid growing up, and I like it, but it's also a lot nicer balance to it as well. I see that they've also made the tips a lot thicker metal nowadays too compared to back then. Unless they did have thicker tips, I have no idea, but what I was dealing with for soldering, because my father did soldering, his tips were a little bit different style. They were like a round nose, forever exploding those, and then you've got to twist them back together and try and still use that kind of a tip now that's twisted and broken. It's like so much frustration, right? You do have a couple of light bulbs on here. Now, one thing I found on my gun, I initially pulled the trigger and it's like, huh? The light bulbs aren't lighting up. Gives. You know, and they have a flimsy mount. I think they pretty much have always had flimsy mounts on them, but whatever. They're not the brightest bulbs in the world, but I did have to tighten them up because they weren't screwed in all the way from the factory, so they weren't coming on. Now they do, and whatever, but I mean, it's not like it gives a ton of light, but it does give some. If you're in a darker area, I think the light bulbs would be more than sufficient, but if you're in an area where it's fairly well lit up, like where I'm sitting, because this is where I do most of my soldering anyway, the light bulbs are kind of useless to me, right? So I don't really care. But this gun, I pull the trigger, and in about 10 seconds, I got tons of heat, melts the solder on there, pop on my connections. I'm in and out. I've barely heated up the wire. And this is especially important if you're an RC hobbyist like I am, and you need to change battery connectors out, you know, because we all have our favorites, right? Well, you're going to need a gun like this to deal with the thicker cables, because those thicker cables, this is not going to be sufficient. Even those soldering pen stations that have like a similar size tip, I really don't think they're sufficient enough to really get the thicker cables on there properly without causing too much heat in the cable. So I think this is actually the way to go, is with one of these soldering guns, because they can lay out the heat really instant and fast. You're not waiting, and you know, as soon as you let go of the trigger, they cool off rather quickly too, which is also nice, you know. And then you can lay it on the table, and it stays, you know, well above your table surface. You lay this on the table, and you know, a lot of times it likes to go into the table, which would probably not go well with your other half. So yeah, this works a little bit better. But I do have the helping hand station for this, but sometimes I actually do forget and I just put it on the table and it's like, whoops, you know, let's not do that. So anyway, really good gun, works very well. The price to me was actually worth it for the $80. You know, I definitely have no problems paying $80 for Weller stuff. Weller's been around forever, and they've always made really good quality products. They still are, you know, and so I'm really happy with the gun. I think it's a great gun. I can't give anything a 5-star rating. You guys know that, okay? Hopefully you know that, because nothing's perfect. But I would definitely, for sure, give this thing like, you know, 4 3/4 out of 5. The last quarter, of course, it's not perfect. But it is a great gun. It does come with some accessories, which is good too. You get other tips, which I'll never actually use. But, you know, you never know. That's what I think right now. I might change my mind someday. Of course, you got your Allen key and a little bit of sample solder there. The price of the extra tips, you know, for the same tip, for 10 bucks for 2 of them, I thought, well, that's a pretty good deal, you know, for 2 extra tips. I'm okay with that price as well, you know, and so I'm quite happy. I think it's a great tool. It works well. Saved my butt, saved all my frustration and anger I was going through trying to use that 45 watt jobby, which is not adequate enough. But if you're looking for something that can solder some pretty heavy gauge stuff, this would be the gun I would definitely recommend. You know, even over the lower wattage models. Now the lower wattage models, they had another one. They, of course, you got your Master Craft version. My buddy of mine has one. He loves that gun. They had another one just below this from Weller. Not much cheaper, you know, like it's a little bit cheaper. But I thought, well, this has got a really nice case with it too, and it's like, but it's got more power. I wanted the power. I was not going to take any chances. And I know that the other gun would have also done the job, you know, being a few dollars cheaper, but this is kind of what I've been used to, is the black version gun all my life. Not that color really makes any difference, but this is what I'm used to. This is what I'm used to seeing from Weller, you know, and of course the high power, right? And I like the high power part, and it works. It got it done quick and easy. Didn't overheat any wires. My connections are good and solid. I don't have to worry about them. So is a win-win in the end. So whether you're soldering RC battery connectors or heavier gauge wire, this would be the beast that you'd want to get into. For that, I think it's definitely worth every penny. Anyways, so if it was on sale, I would have gone for the sale price too, but I still had no problems paying 80 bucks, you know, because to me that was worth it, hands down. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the review video on this Weller gun, and if you do need one, hey, get one. And the 7-year warranty is really awesome. You know, warranties are really nice to have, you know, and the fact that a company can give you a 7-year warranty definitely shows that they really have faith and trust in their products. And Weller has been around since the Stone Age, so you know they've got a lot of really good products. You know, that's the big thing, right? So anyway, there you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.